Welcome to the Ocean Cruises podcast hosted by Andy H. This week we are speaking to Michal and Joel from the YouTube channel Bums on a Boat. Michal and Joel come from Washington State where they both met. Joel bought their vessel with his brother and friends and then sailed it to Cuba prior to Michal joining as crew. They both performed a major refit to get the boat ocean-worthy and ready to sail it back to its original home port in Greece. Michal and Joel live life to the fullest, push the boundaries, and always challenge themselves. They take each day as it comes and learn as they go, inspiring and entertaining their viewers and followers. We talk about how they first met, what they did prior to living aboard, how they earn money, their journey so far, and what's in store for the future. You can learn about Michal and Joel on their YouTube channel, Bums on a Boat. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and download the audio on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Yeah, I don't even
Yeah, I
know.
couldn't tell you. I just
whipped that out trying to
I know
sound
he's
cool.
got no. I know he just basically
He cut his
doesn't make
ear
any
off.
sense with his art. It just looks like a little 3-year-old made it.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's regarded as like this world famous artist, and we went to this museum, and we really wanted to like him because he's from the town where we moved to in Spain. So we were like, oh, we'll go and see this Picasso museum and pay some respects to the heritage of the city or whatever. And we're walking through, and we're like, wow, this is dog shit. This is so bad. Like, there's just these giant murals, and it's like if somebody just OD'd on acid for like a year. That this is the brain. That this is like the type of art they'd make.
Do you know if he was into that stuff?
Probably. I mean, there's not much to do here. So if he had access to like good LSD, I imagine he probably would have taken it. I suppose Andy was around in the '60s when like there was absolutely nothing to do. So yeah, I imagine so. Maybe. So whereabouts are you now? Where in the States are you?
We're in Eastern Washington State.
Whoa, that's a
Mhm.
bit of a transition in terms of weather.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's chilly. I mean, it's
Yeah.
60 degrees Fahrenheit, but
It's really cold for
it's
us.
cold.
It's been
What's
over
60
2 years.
degrees in centigrade?
Ugh, I'm not sure.
Ooh, that's a good one. So 40.
What's my guess? 20?
Oh, you know the calculation. That's impressive.
I know 40 was 100. Yeah, so it must be 20 or less.
Oh, that's okay.
Maybe less than that even.
It's really not bad, you know? It's
Yeah.
just like there's no humidity and we're so used to that it's just like
It's not the Caribbean.
way different. Yeah.
No, we're not in the Caribbean anymore,
No.
mate.
Yeah. How did you end up there?
Well, it's where both of our families are from.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been 2 years now
Mm-hmm.
since we've seen any of them.
No way. Is that like specifically due to COVID, or did you just not plan on getting back anytime soon anyway?
No, we were definitely going back last summer. My
Yeah.
sister was going to get married last summer and she ended up putting it off till this summer.
Oh,
So, and we could have gotten back, but we were so worried about being locked out of the DR and not getting back to our boat that we didn't
Yeah.
leave. And it ended up being really good that we stayed because we sat out a hurricane and the boat slipped and we were there to save it. So it's a good deal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a good deal. Is she
Yeah.
doing the wedding this year?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going ahead.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
main reason why we're back, and then we're
Right.
gonna see as many family members and friends as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then hopefully not go back to the cold for like another 2 years at least.
Right.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
like, come visit us next time. It'll be great.
Yeah, much better. Have you not
Yeah.
been barraged with visitors? Because didn't your sister come to visit you a while back? And she
Yeah,
brought a
Joel's
kid with her.
sister visited.
My sister
yeah.
visited us in St. Thomas,
Uh-huh.
the Virgin Islands,
Yeah.
and before that, we had a couple visitors in Dominican Republic in
Yeah.
Luperon.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, my family visited us like 3 years ago for Christmas in Luperon, which is a really rural area of the DR.
Mm.
And I think that was a little bit too much culture shock for them to where they're like not sure they want to come visit anymore.
Yeah.
They
went
like
there
the
once.
all-inclusive hotels and
Yeah,
That part of it's nice.
the resorts kind of a
Yeah.
vacation, and that's not what they got when they visited us in Luperon.
yeah.
Yeah, I went there when I was like, I think I was 19. So I was fresh on the scene. Like I was 19, I was a bit cocky. You know, I enjoyed going out. And yeah, it was these all-inclusive hotels that were advertised, and it was mostly Canadians that were there. Actually, there wasn't that many American people there.
Mm.
But yeah, we got to this all-inclusive resort. I'm like, oh my God, it's amazing, and all the people seem really friendly, like all the staff that works in the hotels. So a couple of guys invited us out. They were like, oh, come to like our local nightclub and stuff in town. So I was like, oh yeah, like we'll meet your friends. And like, oh my God, that is the most dangerous night I've ever experienced in my life. I had two different people point guns at me.
Oh my
And
God.
one of the guys who pointed a gun at me ended up being friends with the bouncer. And then the bouncer came over to me and he was like, well, what problems are you starting? I'm like, mate, he's got the gun. I'm not starting a problem. Like, what the heck? So yeah, we ended up getting kicked out. I don't know how because I got a gun pointed at me. But yeah, it's the country is gorgeous. Like it's in terms of like the scenery and the wildlife, it's beautiful. But yeah, flipping heck, it's
Yeah,
dangerous when you get to some spots.
that's
Yeah,
for
yeah, and
sure.
we spent 2 years there, and
Mm.
we ended up traveling a lot by motorcycle through the
Mm.
mountains, which is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
We drove from Luperon to Cap Cana, which is it's like the northwest
It's pretty much across the
to the
country.
southeast side of the country, and it was like a 7-hour car drive,
Yeah.
and that was the craziest drive I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
We had like one near-death experience, which I thought was pretty good. Just
Was
one.
it like your fault or someone else's
Well,
fault?
so it's a 2-lane road. We're going pretty quick,
Mm.
and there's a car right next to me, and this semi just noses right out and right in front of both of us. At full
I'm
speed, we're
sure.
doing like 70 miles an hour, and he just pulls out and starts turning, and you have like a couple seconds to think.
Mm.
And there was a motorcycle to my left, which wasn't even in a lane. He was in the bike lane. It's just a little tiny skinny lane, and then there's a cement block there. And so I was in the left lane, and so I decided, I sped up and I got over just to try to go, because I knew the car next to me was going to just get behind me at full speed. They don't really stop. So
Mm.
I was afraid to hit the brakes, because I thought that
Yeah.
then this guy would hit me on the
Yeah.
side. So I actually, and you only have a couple seconds, I floored it and just got over, and everybody started freaking out because they didn't know I saw the guy on the motorcycle, because there was a guy right next to me. And so
Right.
we're pinching, and it was close, hit that guy came out, and I just saw, we didn't touch, but I thought maybe the window was going to break or something.
Mm.
The little rear view mirror, or
Good reactions.
Yeah. The side mirror.
the side mirror sticking out, and we made it. And poor Maria, my sister-in-law, she put her headphones on and started listening to Eckhart Tolle, if you've heard of
Right.
him. Yes, she put these like noise canceling, and she just went into her own world, and she was like breathing, and she wasn't looking
Just
at
wake me
anybody
up when we get back.
for the whole trip. I can
Yeah.
hear the little bell, and I could
Yeah.
hear his voice. I knew she was listening to him. Yeah, it was pretty stressful.
But if you would have braked, we would have been screwed.
It's hard to say. You don't have very
Well, you're alive.
long to
Let's not
think.
dwell on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose. Yeah, it is. The roads are pretty crazy. I remember on a couple of times when we did like some excursions when we were there. Like you're in a taxi, so I suppose the taxis like have to stop at traffic lights because they are foreigners. But a lot of people just don't. So you get to a light and it's like it's just red, and there's loads of cars on either side of you. They're just keeping on going. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched a documentary. I think it was like last week, and it was about St. Thomas in the Caribbean. And
Oh,
there's
yeah?
quite a lot of people saying it's like one of the most beautiful islands in the world.
Yeah,
You
we
think so? Yeah.
we agree. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
of the islands that we've seen, it's like top for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
So it
Yeah,
looks
and-
pretty secluded. Like there's not a massive amount of commerce there, but it just looks super pretty. Like the beaches look stunning.
Yeah, and really, it's St. John is the place, and
I guess that's
it's
true.
about 3 miles from St. Thomas, and it's part of the American Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
And St. John is 2/3 national park, so it's
Right.
all protected. And St. Thomas is really developed. There's a lot
That's
there.
more developed, I would
It's
say.
busy. There's way more to do, I guess, in terms of nightlife, and
Yeah.
um,
But still, there's some amazing beaches.
yeah, no, it's amazing. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
you
was
know
the
any-
documentary?
Oh, it's just a random thing on YouTube. When I do my work, I put something on that looks nice. I'm like, oh, there's a cool beach, or that looks like a cool boat. I put it on, and then 20 things come on after it. Eventually, you end up on a topic that's like way far off what you originally started watching. But yeah, one of
Yeah.
these things that popped up was about that island, and I just glanced up. I was like, oh wow, it is really really pretty, and it's not one you hear of that much when you hear about beautiful Caribbean islands and stuff like that.
Yeah, true.
And for us, so our hailing port of the boat is St. Thomas Virgin Islands, and we
Yes.
bought it in Florida.
Mm.
So we didn't change the name, and we always had like this idea we wanted to go back to where the hailing port was, but we really didn't know St. Thomas was going to be like that until we pulled in.
Oh yeah.
Mm. So
Yeah,
that was lucky.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It was.
Yeah. What?
was
So
amazing.
just explain the story, I suppose, from the beginning, because it's really interesting.
Yeah,
It's wild. That's you. Take it away.
It starts with my brother, who my brother read the book Sailing the Farm,
Mhm.
and we had a friend, Jared, that went to high school with my brother. They're both 3 years younger than me, and we were all roommates, and we were in the golf industry at the time, and we got this idea, kind of started with Tony, that we wanted to buy a sailboat and travel the world, live on it. And at that time, we were really into sustainability, and I think our motives were a little different than now, my personal motives at this point, but we went for it. And so we both, all three of us, worked really hard, stayed in a little tiny apartment with no furniture, and in about a year and a half, we were ready to go to Florida. And we all went to Florida. We sold everything, just took what we thought we needed, and we bought a boat in 1 week of being in Florida.
Mm.
And there's a lot of really cool things that happened within there. I'm trying to give like the real quicker version here,
Yeah.
but we bought the boat. We had, we took 3 sailing lessons with a professional it was in San Diego Bay.
Okay.
Captain Keith Charters. To this day, he's still like the top of my list as far as sailors go, and the way he taught us was amazing. And so we did take a couple lessons, and we read some books. And then we bought this boat after looking at like 6 boats in person.
Okay.
And we bought it for $10,000. And it's been a roller coaster. Like right when we bought it, there was some problems with the engine, and
You still have some problems with the engine, I think.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. So we bought it with no survey, and we did not do a sea trial. We didn't even have him turn the engine over.
Okay.
So
There's some
But it was
lessons
a
for people
weird
listening here, I
situation.
think.
There's
some lessons for people listening here, I think.
There are for sure.
Yeah.
There's some really, if for this exact boat though, there was some circumstances where you couldn't really. He was having a hard time selling it for that reason, because he wasn't from Florida. So he was trying to sell it. I don't know where he was at exactly, but he was on the phone trying to sell it. But there was, we had looked at boats, and we were really basing it on intuition at that point. And it's been 5 years, and I really think, it's hard to say. I maybe would have liked a bigger boat at this point in time, but we're making this one work, and it's seaworthy.
Yeah, it really is.
It's a big thing.
I mean, it's got you far. I know, like, you did your refit on it, so you put a lot of effort into it, but it's got you quite a few places. And you're
Yeah.
still alive, so yeah, it's worked.
And it's made it through some pretty strong winds, some tough weather.
Couple knockdowns.
Couple knockdowns.
Yeah, so for $10,000, yeah, even if you had a few problems, to be honest, if that engine was in perfect working condition, it would be worth $10,000 by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a Volvo Penta MD 2030, and we've it's people have been giving us some grief a little bit because we're doing the thorny path. We're going dead east, and so since we've left Luperon, we've had to motor, and you don't have to motor, but if you really try to sail that, it's ridiculous. Yeah, you're going against the current and the waves.
Yes.
And the wind. So other people that try to go from Florida to like Grenada, if they want to sail it, they do different routes, up to Bermuda, then down to Puerto Rico, and then straight across. But they're longer passages, you know, week at a time or longer.
Or like Maddie and Herbie, where you cross the Atlantic in order to go with the wind the whole time.
They do everything.
Right. Yeah,
Like those guys just do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
they
so
do.
funny. There's like he's a really, really competent sailor. Like he knows what the oceans do all over the world. There was one video and he was like, "Oh, let's see what the weather is going to be like today." And he just popped his head out and looked around. He was like, "Oh, we're going to have these types of waves. We're going to have this." I'm like, "That's insane. Like how much do you have to just like stare at clouds to be able to understand what's going to happen for 24 hours?" But he's right. Like he knows it. He's so knowledgeable when it comes to that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you decided to do this?
So I was 27.
Wow.
Yeah, 27. And I remember we sailed into Cuba when I was 29,
Right.
just before my 30th birthday. And so that was big for me to get there before 30 for some reason. And right after Cuba is where Michal comes in. So I'll let her continue from there. But, you know, we spent 6 months working on the boat. We sailed 3 days from straight. That was our first passage. It was pretty crazy. We followed a cold front and we made it to Key West from St. Petersburg. And we just did the straight shot. From there, we went to Cuba. We got hit in a pretty bad squall going to Cuba. And that plus the Cuba experience, for whatever reason, my brother and my friend Jared decided they were done. At that time, they weren't sure if they would be back or not, but they were like, we definitely want to leave the boat, go back home. There was, you know, there's a lot of other storylines going on with each of them. But for me, I stayed on the boat by myself, kept the dream alive. I ended up working. I had to leave the boat on anchor in Key West, which is crazy. It's one of the wildest anchorages still to this day that I've been in, because it's completely exposed. And, you know, it's 30 feet deep usually everywhere you go. And there's some crazy currents that overpower the wind. So your boat does all sorts of weird things.
Yeah, there's not really any protected anchorages in Key West. It's just like a plop of sand. So the wind changes and it's going to get you.
Yeah, when you get certain winds, I mean, you look as far, you can look straight to Cuba, and, you know, and there's nothing really in between you and Cuba. So, you know, for the fact that the boat, I remember leaving it on anchor because that's all I could do at the time. I had to go make some more money. So I was just kiss the boat and I hope you're back here. I did the best I could. And the boat was still there when I came back. And, you know, here and there doing some work and trying to figure out my life. And then Michal came into the picture and joined the boat.
The sail over to Cuba, you put some videos, you've got some videos online of that one. I can probably understand why your friends would back out. That looked like quite a rough sail, and you didn't have a spray hood on your boat neither.
Yeah, right. And really, it's not knowing what boats can handle. And since it was our first time out, you know, when you think you're gonna die, it doesn't matter if you're actually about to die or not.
Yeah,
when you really believe it, you're gonna die. You think this is it, it's it. Yeah. And that's that, you know, now knowing what boats can handle and knowing, you know, sea conditions and things, squalls, they come. But for us, we didn't know how long that storm was going to last.
Yeah. And
the lightning, and we're thinking if this keeps up for much longer, and eventually it does pass, you know, but that.
Yeah, if you've never been through, if it's your first time and you end up stuck in a pretty bad storm, it can be scary. Especially if you haven't got much experience on the boat and you don't know what it can handle. Yeah.
Right, and the GPS was fritzing out, and our radio didn't work. We actually Maydayed. Yeah. So, and I'm glad that our radio. I found out later doing work that we had a bad connection. When I was, you know, just going through the boat, the radio connection for a VHF was like taped. It was like twisted and had tape around it. So right. I disconnected and did a proper connection. And then I was able to reach out. But when we were trying to use the radio, it would just shut off. There was no response. So we weren't getting out to anybody. And we had our SOS.
Hard way, I suppose.
Yeah. We had our SOS on the inReach and we almost hit it. And Jared was the one who talked us off the ledge. and he was the one that was getting rest down below while Tony and I were up top.
Right.
And so I remember saying, all right, well, let's let Jared get up here. And if he still doesn't want to SOS, then that's fine. And I was so exhausted. I went down and passed out just immediately. And I was just covered in, I was soaking wet. And I left everything on and I just laid down and was out.
It's good.
So
The story sounds like a bit of a joke. It's just like, oh, me and these two guys, and like Tony had an idea, and then we went to Florida, and then we went to Cuba, and we got stuck in this storm. Sounds like some dudes walked into a bar type of joke. Well, it's really good. It's great.
Yeah. It's a
So-
steep learning curve.
Yeah, I
Stuck
bet it
with
was. Yeah. So, Michael, how did you end up getting involved in this idea?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Joel from before, so we knew each other for a few years before he went and got the boat with these two. So we both golf, like that was our passion before sailing, basically.
Oh, nice.
And we worked at the same golf course. And I still remember that summer evening sitting in the apartment with them where they're like outlining their plan. We're going to go to Florida. We're going to buy this boat. We're going to sail away. We're going to live on it, live on uninhabited islands. We're going to fish. And all of this was like totally foreign concept to me. I mean, growing up on a wheat farm in Eastern Washington, I was like, you can live on a boat? People do that?
Yeah.
And I was just blown away that they wanted to do this, but I was also a little bit inspired. And meanwhile, I'm still going to school. So they're off having these adventures, and I'm like the bum's biggest fan. I'm watching all their videos. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. These guys are crazy. They're adventurous. This is awesome. And I came up with this idea that I wanted to get a van and have some adventures of my own. So that's the path that I was on when Joel calls me up, kind of just out of the blue. We'd been in touch, but not that often. We were kind of just doing our own thing. And yeah, he asked what was going on with me. And I said, oh, I'm going to get a van. I'm going to go climb mountains. I'm going to have like this awesome adventure. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I'm about to go cruise around the Bahamas and I could use some crew if that's something you'd be interested in. And I was
Nice
like,
offer.
oh, okay. That sounds great.
Yeah. That must be like the best pickup line ever.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
right?
at the
Call a
time,
girl, hey, do you want to cruise around the Bahamas? Yeah, okay.
yeah, actually, at the time,
Honestly.
I thought I was going to be in the Bahamas in like a month. I had a time, like a schedule. My brother and at the time, I think they had not even been married yet. No, they were married.
Your brother and Maria?
Yeah, were they? No, they weren't married yet.
Not yet.
No, so they were flying to the Bahamas and they were going to Freeport. And they're like, Joel, will you meet us there? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll be there.
Oh yeah, easy.
I'm like, okay, 3 weeks, I'm gonna be in Freeport. And so that's why I'm telling Michael, yeah, you fly here, and then we're gonna sail to Freeport. And of course, that didn't even come close to happening. I mean, by the time we make it to Miami, we're like 2 months behind, when we were supposed to be at Freeport.
Almost
Yeah.
sank the boat on the
Yeah,
way.
yeah, it
It was crazy. Yeah, so when I flew to meet up with Joel, like we were pretty explicit. There were boundaries. We were not a couple. I was going to have an adventure of my own on his boat, and it was very.
Can I interject one thing?
Oh yeah.
I also said I think this was a great opportunity for her to write and to fulfill her passion, what I thought was her passion. So it wasn't like just sail the Bahamas. I knew she wanted to be a writer, and I knew that she wanted to have adventures. And
It's
so
also
I
very
think this is
romantic.
an opportunity for you to get content. I think if you come out here, you're gonna have plenty to write about,
Which is an even better
and
pickup
you're gonna
line,
have an
honestly.
adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't just
Yeah.
sail around with me to the Bahamas. I did have a little more.
Just imagining this, like you've got a guy calling you up. He's like, "Oh, come sail around the Bahamas. You can write books with me. You can do this." Like, it's a dream guy,
Oh, yeah.
Very good proposal.
So I was hooked, and I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was getting into, of course. And yeah, on the way from Marathon, where I met him, to Miami, of course, the engine still isn't working properly. It's clogged up in the exhaust. And so what ended up happening, we're both up top, just kind of motor sailing along. And I go down below to plant some sprouts or whatever. We were sprouting on the boat, and I step into ankle deep water. And I'm just like, oh, Joel, something's not right. You better come take a look at this. The boat's sinking.
Even if you don't have experience on boats, you know that that's probably not correct.
I guess it could.
Go
Yeah.
down to check on your sprouts, and you end up stepping in water.
Yeah.
What was
So
up there? What went on there?
Yeah, it was a perpetual problem where our exhaust elbow, we had a high-rise elbow that comes out of the back of the engine and it mixes the air and the water, the salt water, and then it goes out of the back of the boat. So that thing was clogged when we bought the boat, and we used a hanger, but because of the shape of it, we weren't able to take it apart first of all. So we just kind of tried to unclog it. Well, that thing never really was unclogged. And so what would happen is when you'd run it at too high RPMs, the water had nowhere to go. So it would back up. There's a boot on the back of the, what's that called? It's like the heat exchanger, but the heat exchanger goes into the manifold. And the manifold has the antifreeze. It's like freshwater cooling. Yeah. So that's the closed cooling system. No water comes in or out of that. It just circulates. But when you'd run it, the salt water would back up and it would blow this boot open and get into where the antifreeze is. Right. And then it would overflow into the overflow tank, which it's designed, if the engine gets hot, it's designed, for that, the water kind of goes into the overflow tank, and when it cools down, it goes back in. Yeah. Well, the salt water was constantly just flooding in there. So it would get into the overflow tank and then it would just start spraying out.
It was a literal geyser
all over the engine. And so it was salt water. Salt water was literally, so, the impeller, we're sucking water up into the engine and it's not having to go, and it's just spraying out into the boat. And that's what happened for like an hour and a half. Without knowing it, it was just down there dousing the engine and it filled up the boat. And luckily, when we found it and you turn the engine off, then you stop taking water on. Yeah. So that was nice. And we pulled our sails and I told Michael, hold this heading. And we were in Hogg's Channel, so you don't have very far to tack before you have to tack again. So I'd get her set and I'd run down and I had a little hand bilge and I'd pump into a bucket and then I'd see we have to tack and, we tack and I just.
My word.
Did that until we got the water out of the boat. Yeah. We made it to the next anchorage.
Yeah, it's great that you're still alive after all of this type of stuff. So what was it? You just needed a new exhaust elbow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, eventually that's what we did. We just got a brand new one, but we kept fighting that one for a long time after. Like we put it in muriatic acid, and gunk would come out of it, and we just kept trying to make that one work. At the time, we were on a really limited budget. I mean, we still are, but we were really limited back then. So those elbows are like $900, $1,000. Yeah.
Is it the normal one that like bends down 90 degrees? Oh, because
that's what we ended up getting, which is way cheaper. But
to replace, like a few hundred.
To replace the one that we had was like $1,000, which is what we thought we needed to do because we didn't know enough to know that we could just get the 90-degree little thing, and we're like, oh god, that's not gonna happen.
Well, we figured because that was on the boat, it must need it. It wasn't until we did a lot of research and poking around that we realized the boat will be fine with a 90-degree elbow.
Yeah, I've kind of made it a point when it comes to servicing to take that off at least once a year and just dip it in the acid and clean it out, then repaint it. I took mine off like about 6 months ago, and it was 2 years old and the engine hadn't done that many hours. And the hole on the top where the water, I can't remember if it's the water that goes through the hole on the top, or is it the exhaust? I can't remember, one of the two.
Water,
yeah. It was probably like 5 millimeters in diameter. That's how much space was actually left, and that was only after 2 years.
No.
Was it like black?
Black. It was like black.
Gunky?
Yeah, it was. No. Yeah, it was just like carbon, just build up. So you need to take that off, and then you have to like clean inside the exhaust area inside like the engine block as well. But it's a little temperamental point on one of those engines. So you're alive.
And the 90-degree is even crazier. If you've seen it, it comes out and it snakes up and then it down and then it comes up again before it goes out. So that's, you can't even clean that.
Yeah, you just have to dunk it in the acid and then just shake it around.
You hope it. Yeah, but see, you can't take it apart to see it. So, I mean, I don't know about that design. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Is that sorted now then? So the engine actually fully works on the boat? Because I know you did some work on it just recently as well.
The engine is a legend. these
Yeah.
days.
The engine has saved us
Runs
couple
like a
times.
champ for sure.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean they're an amazing engine. Like it's a 10 to 20,000 hour engine, no problem if you service it and it's not too old.
Mm.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, we did a big rebuild right before we left the Luperon, due to a crazy mistake we made, which ended up working out. But the engine ran very well after that. I mean, every time we needed it.
Yeah, we're still tracking down a couple oil leaks, but it's running
No big
great.
deal.
Yeah, just the oil leak. That's the one thing. But man,
Yeah.
she ran very good.
Oh,
We
that's
needed
cool.
her to do all that easting.
So so Michael, you came on board probably a few years ago now, I think.
Yeah, it was early 2018.
Okay,
Mhm.
right. And when did you make the decision that you wanted to have a life on a boat? Was it related to Joel, or was it more related to you just love the lifestyle of sailing around?
It was both for sure. Like after that experience where we nearly sunk the boat, but we handled it and we actually made it to Miami, like Joel and I were, we decided that we were a couple at that point, that things were working out good and we liked working together and all of that.
I'll tell him the exact story. It was
What?
Well, I asked her quite plainly if she wanted to be my girlfriend. Just one of the like corniest lines ever, While we were and during that day when the boat was sinking.
Yeah.
She handled it so well. She was so level-headed. She's still to this day like it's just the way she is. But I remember being so shocked at how calm she was and how she communicated. And she didn't seem scared in that situation, and she was willing to help me do what needed to be done, and it was like amazing.
So you needed her around for your own protection and well-being, really.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was like self-preservation. Hey, man, I need you.
Yeah,
I don't know if this boat's gonna be around tomorrow, but that's fine.
Oh, that's really cool.
Just you and me.
Yeah.
So it went from that. So you were then basically in Miami as a couple, and then did you decide, okay, at a certain point we're going to head back over to the Caribbean? Where did the story go from there?
Yeah, we were basically planning on going to the Bahamas all along. So we just went up to Miami to make the short crossing from there to Bimini. And we were traveling with this older guy who was single-handed, Sterling, on this crazy trimaran. And he sort of was leading the way. Like he was the experienced sailor who was going to show us all these sweet spots in the Bahamas. And through the course of that, he kind of started talking about the Dominican Republic, like it was the best place to be on earth. It's so cheap. It's a great spot for hurricane season. So that kind of became our goal where, okay, we need to get the boat to a safe place for hurricane season before we run out of money so that we can fly back and do
Make
some
more
work
money.
to keep it going.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what we did.
So it formed as we were traveling, and it was due to Sterling, just his intel.
Yeah.
Do you know when when you were in Washington and you were like working at a golf course?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you work, did you ever picture a life really where you would be like on a boat in the Caribbean, like living month by month, figuring out work, figuring out cash? Because it's a crazy life to aim for. If you've got something stable up north and you've got jobs and stuff, it's a massive transition.
I think the weird part is that my life growing up was so stable that I actually craved like some chaos in that respect. Like I remember telling my parents that I actually wanted to struggle. I wanted to have a hard time to kind of find out what I was made of. And I always knew that I wanted to travel. And my mom definitely planted that seed early on. She said, it's important that you leave this town of 500 people. You need to figure out that there's a bigger world out there. And, you can always come home when you're done exploring. I think they figured that I would be done at some point and I would want to come home and settle down. So when I got on a small boat with a strange man, they were a little freaked out, but Since then, they've turned a corner and they're extremely supportive.
Do they
And
call it
it's all
strange
good.
man?
Well,
Is that how they refer to it?
so Michael's mom. Sorry, what did you say?
I was saying, do they still call you strange man? Is that how they refer to you?
Maybe behind my back.
No.
But Michael's mom grew up racing sailboats,
Oh,
so she knew that side of the sailing world. So she thought Michael was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I just had a conversation with her like 2 days ago. She was recalling the first time I talked to her on the phone as Michael was coming down. Michael put her mom on the phone with me, and she remembered her takeaway after that was, "Oh my God, I know more about sailing than Joel does." And because and she did, and I told her, "You probably still do," and she's like, "I don't know about that. I mean, we've done quite a bit of sailing lately, and who knows?" But her dad was really one of those, get the whole family involved.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna race. We're gonna, struggle and go out there in the bad weather, and we're gonna clean the bilges. And so she looked at Michael like she was insane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
What
cruising is
about-
a lot different than racing.
Yeah, so different. And you
Yeah.
learn a lot more as well because you're always on the boat. I mean, when you're racing, it's like
Yeah.
you're going out for a day or a couple of days or well, maybe a year if you like doing a clipper race or something. But yeah, like you do learn a lot more when you're cruising full time because you're constantly studying the weather, you're constantly looking at anchorages, currents, you're really studying the geography of the land that you're around and that type of stuff as well. What about you, Joel? So like you were brought up in a similar type of place. Was your background like quite stable and land based?
I mean, very different background than Michael.
Yeah.
But land-based.
It was land-based though.
Sure.
Yeah. So no one in my family's ever had like, I think some of my family in Denver has like, a motorboat they take out on the lake, but there's no sailors or anyone traveling. Most of the family that I know that I've met is, they pretty much stay where they're born.
Mm-hmm.
But my upbringing was different than Michael's for sure. It was, I don't know if it was stable. It was great. I mean, I had a lot of I guess I don't know where to go with this one. So it was a pretty typical American, upbringing. I lived in apartments and moved around a lot, and my parents they split up a lot, so it was like there was a lot of that going on. So I think I was I don't know, emotionally maybe not very stable because of that type of situation, the divorcing and they actually got remarried, and so that I think really like was a big challenge for me and probably still is. So that wasn't very stable. But as far as like I always had, food to eat, I always had a place to sleep, and now that I look back, an apartment that has a shower, hot water, and a refrigerator, nice toilet. I mean, yeah, I had everything you need.
Yeah.
So
but this whole trip has really helped me to gain appreciation for that.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, because we kind of struggled as a family, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those trying to make ends meet every month kind of a thing.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, did you have like a natural instinct to want to explore and go and see somewhere different?
It happened at about 18. Yeah.
All right.
And then all of a sudden I just wanted to get out of this town, Spokane. And so I lived, Michael grew up in a small little town of like 500, which is like just outside of Spokane. It's like an hour drive. And Spokane is more of a bigger city type. I don't know the population exactly, but it's just a much bigger place than St. John. So different kind of.
I feel like you always had that like self-exploration though, if that makes sense. Like he was always pushing himself. He was really into skateboarding. He was like kind of like challenging himself, always doing maybe risky things like chasing adrenaline, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And growing up skateboarding, that like I think that formed a lot of my mentality is, when you're skateboarding, it's just you and you're creative out there, and you do it for yourself. You don't really have anyone watching you most of the time. You're out there, you have your goals, and you feel great when you have this goal. I want to kickflip this 6-stair, and you try it like 100 times and you fall, and then you finally land it, and it's just for you. Maybe nobody sees it, and that's maybe you're with a friend or two, but it's you got to be self-motivated kind of. And that was my first, well, it wasn't my first job, but when I left, and I was in Arizona, my first job interview in Arizona, I took this psyche test.
Yeah, psychometric.
And it came out, and the manager was like, we really don't want to hire you because it's like what we're seeing here is that you're self-motivated, that you don't respond well to like authority, or you're not really a team player. You're very and I agreed with that. Like, I am self-motivated. I do things for myself. I don't really look for anyone to give me a pat on the back.
What was the job?
It was a sales associate at Brookstone. If you've heard of Brookstone, I don't see it in a lot of places, but it's this weird store that has all sorts of, the main thing is like it has massage chairs, has like Tempur-Pedic beds, but it has all these little gadgets. It's like Christmas time is where it just goes nuts. It's a Christmas kind of weird gifts, a lot of just weird like massaging gifts, and random things like remote control helicopters. I used to fly little helicopters around, but like my main thing was to sit people in these big like $5,000 massage chairs and just get them comfortable and get them and get talking to them, and then sell the chairs, and I actually did really well selling massage chairs.
See, I would have thought for a job like that. So I work in oil and gas, but I do like the HR side of it now. So we do psychometric tests, and like one of the number one rules is never reject someone for a job over the results of a psychometric test. Just use it as a tool to ask them further questions and figure out who they are, because it's very like momentary based. If you're in a bad mood and you get a question which is like, oh, what would you do in this situation? If you're in a bad mood, you'd be like, oh, kill them all. I hate them. I can't deal with this. And you just walk away. Whereas if you've just had like a really compassionate conversation with somebody, you might feel like, oh, let's talk this out. Let's make friends. So it can be completely based on the moment. But yeah, like you said, so they offered you the job and you actually did really well at it.
Yeah, I thought so. Well, yeah, I got some rewards. And
I've always wondered, like I've been to a few of these stores, and I'm not one for massaging at all. Like, I don't mind human contact, but if somebody tries to rub like my shoulder, I'm like, whoa, take it easy. I'm not interested. I really don't like it.
I just don't get that, man.
So there's been 2 occasions in my life where I've been through a massage process. One was in Malaysia, and I was comfortable with that because it was a sports massage, and it was this massive guy, and he was just like getting his elbow in my neck. And it was weird because it was in like this massage parlor that had like these really big fish tanks, and they were all like little Malaysian people, and I'm like 6'2", and I was really big at the time. And he's like, "Oh, take your shirt off," and all these like little Malaysian guys, like, "Oh, so big, so big." I was like, "This is so strange," and he was like getting in my elbow and stuff. But I was okay with it because I had a knot, and he was getting rid of the knot. And then the other one was when we were in, I can't remember, some other place in Asia, and it was one of the, it's actually really cool. It was like a spa where they've got like these racks that they hold on to, and then they walk across your back. But I had to cancel the thing. I was like, listen, you need to stop. I'm not enjoying this at all. I don't get it. My wife loves it. She's probably like once every 3 days, she'll be like, oh, I've got to go for a full body massage. I'm so tense. And I'm like, sweetheart, you've been saying this for 4 years. Like, just go for one if you need to go for one. She's never going to get around to it. But I've always wondered, like, who buys these massage chairs?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a crazy. You can get a car or a massage chair, right? So I look at these things. I'm like, it's like, like a lazy boy. That's nice. Beer, maybe a little ashtray for a cigarette. Lay back. Like, they had one on Friends. Like, Joey and Chandler used to have them. So like, pretty cool. But like so much money for a massage chair.
Yeah. And people would come into the store with no intention of buying a massage chair.
And that's what was hilarious.
You don't go to a mall. They weren't looking for a massage chair, and most of them, of course, there was financing. Some very few of them actually, very few of them actually pulled out the cash and bought it up front. Most of them were like, yeah, you can get this chair for, $100 a month for this
20
long.
years.
All you got to do is qualify, and so they're in there and, you're showing them the settings, you're handing it to them, and then you kind of ask them some questions. And yeah, if you want, we can just see if you qualify. We get their name, a couple of things, and I'll take it to the computer while I got them set up. And, well, hey, you qualify. Yeah, you can get this thing delivered at your house in 5 days. And, you don't have to pay anything right now. And you just kind of pay this much a month for this period of time. And that was
And you could be the best salesperson ever. Like, you are selling people $5,000 massage chairs who don't even want them.
I couldn't believe it.
This is amazing.
Yeah. And honestly, all I would do, and this actually went, this transferred into further on in this boat journey where I had to do some door knocking, which was that's the highest level. That was difficult.
Yeah.
But really what it was is learning to connect with people. And I really didn't care that much if they bought the chair or not. I was genuinely enjoying myself, and I love massages. I loved the chairs. I believed in them. I used them when people weren't in there. And so I would be like, you got to try this, and I would just connect with people. I would talk to them, and it wasn't a make or break for me to sell the chair. It was just, I was competitive, so I'd love to sell the chair, but I remember really it was more of having conversations, getting to know people, and then they would ask a question that would lead to it, or, it would come up sometimes, and that was my style.
That's fantastic. So when I was saying, I was like, who goes into a place wanting to buy $5,000 massage chair? The truth is nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah. They just encounter a really good massage chair salesperson, then they end up getting one.
Yeah, they don't know they don't know they need it until you sit them down
until they meet Joel.
And they go, oh my God, I need one of these.
Yeah. How long did you do it for?
It was about a year and a half. I was going to school in Arizona, so it was in Tempe, Arizona. It was in a mall. So I was like, in just one of those little stores in the mall. And yeah, about a year and a half.
So, okay, so you both ended up back in Washington working at the same golf course. So, like, Joel, did you go from Arizona back to Washington?
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I went back home, and Michael was still in college, and I had come out of this golf specific school. So I got this really fancy job. I thought it was pretty fancy at the time. And I was a golf pro at the Coeur d'Alene Resort Golf Course. Mm-hmm. And it's a beautiful golf course. It's a high end, $220 is what they per person is a regular round in peak season, 220 US. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they had like 100 caddies there. So it was mandatory that you take a caddy. Yeah, it's like mandatory. So not only do you pay the 200 whatever for your own round, but you take a caddy. They have the world's only floating green, movable floating green. So it's like a par 3, and there's just green just out in the middle of the lake, and it's like the landscape is perfect. Everything is on point.
How'd you get to
they have
it?
a little boat. They have this little boat driver.
No
yeah,
way.
It's on a cable. Yeah, it's on a cable.
So you have to sail to the green.
They don't sail, unfortunately. It's just
a little motorboat.
They call it.
Actually, it's on a cable, so the boat driver isn't even steering. Like, it's just on a track.
So he's like doing this or something.
Yeah.
Well, it just gives it gas and goes over there,
Yeah.
and drops them off. But it's a unique experience.
Yeah.
It's just a strange novelty of. It's
Yeah.
a strange idea. How do we make this unique? Let's make the green
And
float.
people come from all over to play this course.
All over.
What was the green
all
made
over
of?
the world. Huh?
What was it made of? The green itself, because it was floating.
That's a great
It looked like the construction of it was. I'm not really even sure. Yeah, it's like
dirt
a barge
all over the top. I don't know what was like
what
floating it.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, it's like there was wood planks all the way around the side. And the top, it was just it was like grass, pristine green, nice grass on top. And then there was a little place underneath where I never went that was like an operation room, and you could drive the green back and forth. And the whole thing was kind of like a barge, I don't know. It's like, those big cement boats that just float somehow. It was, I don't know.
It's the same as the Picasso situation. There's probably some LSD involved in the design of this. That is very strange.
Yeah,
Can you imagine that
I don't know.
conversation? We've
Yeah.
got to build
The floating, it was
the
Hagedorn's
floating
dream.
green.
Yeah.
And he was right. And it was the centerpiece of the whole town. The Coeur d'Alene is the town. And people came all over to play this golf. They still do, to play this golf course. And then they proceeded to spend money all throughout Coeur d'Alene in the resort. And the inclusive experience is you stay in the resort. It's a really nice resort. And then you take this really nice wooden boat across the lake, this beautiful picturesque lake, to the golf course, and you get dropped off on the dock with your golf clubs, and the caddy meets you and takes your golf clubs off. You don't even see him. And you have this nice experience, and there's your golf cart sitting there with your clubs, and you have Michal come up, and Michael's your caddy, and she's super friendly, and it's a whole experience.
And away you go.
Yeah, that does sound pretty exclusive. How many months of the year can you actually play golf there? Because I know in that part of the world it gets pretty absolutely
Maybe
freezing cold.
Yeah, peak season was 3 months.
3 months
June, July,
where
and
it's
August.
actually pretty nice, but maybe 6 months total that the course is open.
Right.
Yeah, I think the whole idea was to try to give a non-member the member experience. So like he tries to make it's a public golf course open to anybody.
Yeah.
And what he's trying to do is make you feel like, you have $1 million membership at the nicest golf course in the world. So when you play there, that's really the mentality, and everybody's kind of on the same page, all the staff.
That's really cool. Is that like a tips-based type of job where you don't get a salary? Yeah.
Michael's job was.
Right.
Yeah, the caddy is a tip.
Okay. So you were a golf trainer at that place?
Yeah, I was I was in the pro shop. I was running, like, just checking golfers in every day. I was like kind of the face. I was always wearing the newest clothes. They would give me like a new wardrobe every year, tons of shirts and pants. And so my job was to wear the clothes and, look good.
Be a living mannequin.
Walking mannequin, and but be personable, and you're the first one that they see when they're checking in, and but yeah, and then I started teaching golf and things like that.
Do you still play?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't played in 2 years.
No, we just played the other day.
We just played,
awesome.
But we were on the boat for 2 years. We didn't pick up a golf club. So
Did you play out the golf course?
No, we played at my hometown course, which is really small and simple, but it's awesome.
We love it.
Yeah,
it's real small.
How good are you both at golf?
Well, right now, pretty bad.
No.
I mean, practice a little bit.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I shot an 86.
We're better than most.
And Michael shot an 84. She beat me. And but we hadn't played in 2 years, so it was pretty rough. I think
to go from not playing in 2 years, then that's okay.
That's not. Yeah, I mean, I had fun. I can enjoy myself, and I think to really develop at golf, you should at least be able to dedicate a couple of days a week consistently. Yeah. Otherwise, it's hard to really expect much.
It's such like I played basketball when I was in high school, and then when I was in college. And basketball is a sport where there's a lot of margin for error in when you aim, because the ball is a certain size, the hole is a certain, the basket is a certain size, and there's a lot of places to move around the court. When it comes to golf, you have one swing and such an acute movement to get absolutely perfect. And if you are a tiny bit off, you've destroyed it. It's not like, oh, I missed and I can go and get a rebound or whatever. It's like and everybody who stood behind you thinks you're an idiot.
That's so true.
Yeah, and like you have to play with people who are the same standard as you, and you have to make sure that you're the last ones on the golf course, because if you're bad, you're going to hold everybody up. But yeah, I did it for a little while. When I lived in the Middle East, I was in oil and gas, and it's like standard, like you go out and you socialize with people on the golf course. So I ended up okay, but you have to practice so much. You have to go to the driving range, you have to practice with all the different clubs. I got one of the nets that I set up in the garden for the apartment. So like every other day, if I wasn't going to the course, I was just like practicing swinging down in the garden.
Is that on your own, or was your company like actively encouraging you to get golf?
Yeah, that was a pretty unique situation. It's actually possibly the best golf course in the world where I did this. So it's the Emirates golf course in Dubai. This is like 350 a round US, something like that. And best friend at the time, who was a project manager of an oil and gas company, he was given an annual membership for him and 10 guests. So whoever he wants to take. And yeah, when he didn't have any clients to take out, he just used to say to like me and four other guys, who's like, oh, let's go and do a round. And yeah, all the drinks were free. So it was
Oh my
crazy.
gosh.
Yeah, so
That's awesome,
it
man.
was amazing. They had a 9 hole as well, which was a bit better for the summer because like in Dubai it gets to like I suppose like in Fahrenheit that's about 110 or 120.
Ooh.
It gets like above 50 degrees. It's on you can't be outside for that long. Like you won't survive it. But yeah, so in the summer months it's okay. You can tee off at like 7 or 8 in the morning, do a 9 hole. Um, but yeah, you would easily get through like 10 beers without going to the bathroom. Like you just 10 beers, you just sweat it out, and you get back to the house and you're still thirsty.
Oh
Um,
no.
so yeah, you don't get drunk. You're just walking around sweating so much. You're drinking all this beer and you're just not getting drunk because it's just going straight through you. Um, but yeah, no, it was I was okay at it, but it was like if you don't practice, you just lose the ability to actually play a decent game.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So you were both working there when you okay, so you were both working there when Joel you decided that you wanted to take off and go sailing.
I actually had
Was it the
just
next
I
year?
took a job at a different golf course,
Yeah.
Hayden Lake Country Club, which is close, and I worked there for 1 year.
Okay.
And it was after that year I called Matt and I told him I'm not coming back next year, and that was really hard to do. I had built like 8 years of experience,
Hmm.
and in the golf industry, that's really pretty important. Is really just your experience and connections, and so I didn't feel like I was going to be able to get that back.
Hmm.
But Michael was still at the resort at that time.
Yep.
But we were in California, so we were also where the money was. How we saved up for the boat was we became caddies in at Bighorn in Palm Desert.
Okay.
And Bighorn is a really exclusive. It's a crazy golf course. It's a membership only, and Tony and Jared and I all were caddies.
So you all went down there for the cash.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we were just
Can you earn a lot of money doing that? Because if you're like a caddy and like Donald Trump turns up, some like billionaire golfer or something, do you not just get like the
it's really,
cash
I
thrown at
mean,
you?
at that golf course, you don't really get, I mean, there were some crazy tips, but in general, it was always like $200 was like a pretty standard for a foursome.
Hmm.
And that would take you like 4 hours to 6 at the most, if you have some crazy golfers.
Yeah.
But you'd also get members that were really fast, that knew the golf course and would try to play as fast as possible. So you might get done in 3 or 2 hours. And sometimes you do 2 loops in a day. That was the thing. So
Yeah.
then you'd make $400 in one day, and that was all cash. And you claim what you want, but you're a private contractor.
Hmm.
And it's a little dicey because you're not really on paper. And if you do one little thing, you can be out of there.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it goes. So you have to be professional and know what you're doing. And
But basically, the way you guys saved up for the boat is you cut all expenses.
yeah, I mean, it was both. It was cutting expenses was a big thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, getting rid of the car and the car payment, and knowing we had. Did we have? I think we had internet, but yeah, we had no TV, and we just cut all our costs down. I remember we just basically had rent, and we were splitting it.
Yeah.
And we at that time while we were saving up, I mean, we didn't do much of anything other than just work and come back to the apartment and walk on a slack line or go to the pool. But everything we did was, free stuff.
Walk on a slack line.
Yeah, I was really into slacklining.
Oh, you can do that too.
Yeah. I'm really into slacklining. I haven't been
really
lately, but like while we were saving up for the boat, during that time, I started walking on a slackline like every day, and I still
Can you
plan
still
on it.
do it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I can walk
Right.
on a slack line all day. Yeah, I don't do the tricks. I just like to walk back and forth, and
Yeah.
I can walk backwards and turn around. Just little things, I can kneel, and I just like to really meditate, especially if I put some music on. It's like the ultimate meditation for me. It's just you and the tree that you're staring at. And I just look at that tree. I'm telling you, I see faces in the tree. I just start to mimic the faces I see in the tree. I'll see trees, they have all these things.
Now you sound crazy.
I'm telling you, that's what I do. And then I just walk, and I'll walk for a long time.
Yeah. How did you get into that? It looks like it's one of those. You start with the stick, don't you, to balance you?
I never used a stick, no.
So you just got on and you could just walk on a rope.
Well, so okay, that brings in the very first job we got to save up. All three of us, we left and we went to Oregon and worked on a weed farm.
You've been all over.
Huh?
You've been all over. You've been everywhere.
Yeah. So, but at this farm, it was like a camp. You sleep in tents, you wake up, and you work like 10 hours a day. But they had a slack line.
Something like that.
Yeah. Just trimming, just everything that needed to be done from the outdoors, cutting things down to just everything to the final, trimming them, just whatever had to be done. That was my first time seeing or doing any of that, but there was a slack line set up, and I just
dangerous.
Yeah, and it was just at the top, and I remember, in the morning I'd wake up early before we'd start. I saw that and was immediately like entranced with it, and I would get up every day and I'd go up there and just try to walk on it, and I was not good for a long time. My whole goal was just to get across it. And it took me a long time just to make it from one side to the other. And, after we left there, I went and bought one and just kept doing it.
Who set up this slack line on a weed farm?
It was the owner.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, he had a half pipe. He had a half pipe up there as well.
No way.
Yeah, a little half. It was a mini pipe. So we would. We had skateboards, and a lot of us were skateboarders. So we would skateboard on breaks or in the morning or afterwards. And there was a slack line, and there was a gym, like outdoor gym.
Was this a proper legal farm, or was this like from many years ago?
At the time, it wasn't.
Right, I remember watching a.
But it was. Yeah.
I can't remember which channel it is on YouTube, but I watched the documentaries where it takes you into the factories and the farms, and it shows you how they treat them and what chemicals they put in, all that stuff. And I remember watching one, and it was an outdoor farm grow, and the guy had a half pipe round the back of his farm. I can't remember where it was, but I'm really going to try and find it. Because that'd be
I can't imagine it was this guy. I don't really want to say names or anything.
Yeah.
Because it was just for a time, and we were out of there, and it was weird because it was big, and the neighbors all knew, and it was like it wasn't technically legal, but I'm sure the officials knew about this place. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like in hiding. He had neighbors, everybody knew about it. There was different properties, so
was there some indoor areas as well?
There was it was like a kind of a greenhouse, not like inside, but it was covered up.
What was it before it was a weed farm? What was it before it was a weed farm?
I have no idea.
If it was a vegetable farm before it was a weed farm, it must be the same place.
I'll check. It could be, but I'll have to watch it because I just couldn't imagine. But it had, because there was a lot of it was just outdoors. There was no covers or anything. It's just, plants like I've never seen, rows and rows of them. And then there was a couple areas that were covered up, and you'd go in there and there was just that section. I'm not sure why some were covered and some weren't.
I get like getting stoned and going on a half pipe seems okay, I get that, but like getting stoned and walking across a tightrope, that sounds like a recipe for a lot of disasters.
It's not a bad idea, actually. It's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I suppose, sometimes you get like really zoned into whatever task it is, so maybe it works really well from that point of view.
Yeah.
So you've really been everywhere and done everything?
No, not at all, but I've been a lot of places, and yeah.
What brought on the original thought of buying a sailboat and sailing around the world? Because I know like your long-term plan is to sail back to Greece. So obviously, I know that was tied into the boat because the boat came from Greece. But when was that moment when you decided I want to buy a boat and sail around the planet? Like what triggered that?
Well, and that's where this whole thing
That's where the weed comes in.
no, well, maybe. It's more of a, I didn't really have a long-term goal. Michael and I were just talking about this. When Tony and Jared left, I really was sticking with an idea of like doing my best right now and not knowing where it was going to lead. So for a long time, I didn't really have a goal to sail anywhere in any particular area. I just had the goal to, every day I would work on the YouTube channel and I would work on myself, what I thought was me growing as an individual. That was important to me. So I really wanted to read and learn because I didn't think I developed that, growing up. And so I got this idea. I wanted to read and I wanted to work out and just try to be healthy. And I also wanted to, I wanted to stick this dream out with the boat. I had the boat. Tony and Jared left it to me. So I didn't want to let the boat sink. I didn't want to give up on it. And so it was more of like every day doing what I could to keep the dream alive, just to keep the boat afloat and to try to make YouTube, which I loved YouTube because you can be creative and you can say or do whatever you want on camera, and then you can edit and you can put your own heart and passion into it and make your own creation and share it with people. So I loved that. And so I just really focused on those things right there. And it wasn't until Michael came around that, and Sterling started talking, that we got this idea to get the boat safely to Luperon. But, that was still the same mentality where here we are today. And in order to do the best I can, the boat needs to be somewhere safe for hurricane season. So we need to get it there. So it was every day wake up and try to move the boat. And it just slowly started to form. And Michael is really goal oriented. And it wasn't like until the boatyard where Michael started to influence me, and we're a team now. And I think she's really good at having the long-term goals. And I'm still pretty much in that. I focus more on what I do today, wake up, and I want to just, I want to play, I want to be a great guitar player. So I don't really know where that's going to take me, but I play the guitar, every day when I can, minus a couple of times when we're traveling and flying. But for over a year, I've been waking up and playing the guitar. Same idea, where I don't know where that'll lead, but I love to play the guitar. I love music. And so I focus on what I'm doing right now. And I'm kind of like letting that go wherever it goes.
Yeah. It's really cool. All right, I've got a question. So Michael, so Joel is like super creative. Yeah. Has Joel changed much since you met him and then you've spent time with him and like you've both grown as people?
I think he's gotten less wild for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's like an extreme personality where he's like all in on whatever he's doing, whether that's good or bad for him. So as long as he can channel that in a like good direction, he's all right. But I think he's become a lot more balanced through my influence. And I know I'm influenced by him, where I'm learning how to focus and go deep, because I'm a lot more scattered. I'm balanced, I'm moderate, but it's hard for me to really zone in and get like a lot out of any one thing, because I'm just so distracted. And maybe that's a girl versus guy kind of trait as well. But yeah, he's definitely gotten a little bit more balanced through being with me. But
I've seen the good side of being balanced. And so it's the goal of mine. Yeah.
But he used to think like, if I'm gonna do something, like I'm gonna go all in. If we're partying today, like I'm gonna drink beers until my body won't do it anymore. And there was a moment in Georgetown, Bahamas, where, well, I thought he was dead. He actually
I think all great men have been through this, you know. There's
Yeah.
times where, you know, you do sleep thinking, am I going to wake up? Maybe not. So,
His was even crazier than that. So, I mean, I think we've been through, I mean, Joel's coordinated. He can walk on a slack line, he can skateboard, he can do backflips. He's got that down. And he got pretty drunk one night at the Chat and Chill. And we're dancing, having a great time. And he climbs up on this railing, and I can tell he's about ready to do a backflip, except there's a string of lights above this railing. You know, he's going to backflip back onto the dance floor, where he
right.
probably would have taken someone out. But instead, this string of lights like tripped his ankle in midair, and he lands on his head, just splat on the dance floor, and he's knocked out with just a little trickle of blood coming out of the corner of his mouth. And I'm like, oh my God, I just watched him die. We've been together for like a month at this point, and he's dead.
Oh no.
But he came to, and we made it back to the boat, and he woke up at some point in the middle of the night and thought he was paralyzed because he couldn't move his neck. And I was like, no, you're not paralyzed. We got back to the boat. It's going to be fine. And he laid in the V berth for the next 6 days, not moving, just.
I had pillows just propping my head. I couldn't turn it in any direction.
And I think that was a major turning point for him.
Yeah, it was a big turning point for me.
Yeah, because he'd always been like, you know, you need to tell me if I'm going too hard, if I'm partying too much, like you need to give me the sign, like it's time to cut it off. And I was like, I'm not gonna do that. You gotta set your own limits. You gotta figure it out for yourself. And he figured it out, crossed the line.
I suppose you get to the point where you think you snapped your neck.
I thought I snapped my neck, and really, it's just like I don't want to go out that way. You know, if it's chasing my dream, and it's like, you know, out there in a storm, and you're just yelling at the weather, and you know, and you're just fighting, and you go, you know, I can live with that. You know, that's an epic way, and you're, you know, not like that though.
Yeah,
that's not how I want to go out, and you know,
it's not a good headstone message, is it? You know, guys trying to do a backflip in a nightclub.
Yeah, make sure you look for lights before you try the backflip. No,
it's not like when the ancestors and, you know, not the ancestors, the people who come after you. I don't know what they would be called. I don't know the correct term for that. Do you know, like when they go to a graveyard? Oh, this is your great granddad. This was this. This was this, and then he comes up to Joel. I try to do a backflip in a nightclub.
Just don't be like Joel.
Die doing a backflip.
Yeah,
I used to do gymnastics when I was younger. From I can't remember what age. I think it was like early teenager. Because I did basketball, so I could jump really, really high. Like from a really young age, I just had incredibly strong legs.
Can you dunk?
Not now.
But you were able to throw it down. Nice.
Yeah, easily when I was younger. Yeah,
Wow.
I had a back injury. Like I don't know, about 5 years ago, I had 3 discs slip out, which was crazy. So I did basketball, I did gymnastics, did loads of weightlifting, and I slipped 3 discs doing 1 sit-up on my living room floor. I just got off the sofa one day when I was watching TV. I was like, I'll do some sit-ups. I haven't done them in a while. I just did 1 sit-up, and then my back went, and then I couldn't walk for like a month. Yeah, it was crazy. I was meant to have surgery, but the doctor said if you do have the surgery, you might find by the time you're 50 that they will seize and you'll start to like shrink in height and your mobility will be really bad. So you're better off waiting it out and have the surgery later on in life if you need it, and then just do physiotherapy. But yeah, I've had quite a few incidents where I've like done backflips in nightclubs and bars and almost killed myself. So yeah, exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, quite a few. I never landed on my head in a nightclub, but yeah, festival. I went to a festival once. No, I did. I did land on my head doing a backflip at a concert. There's a band called The Darkness. I don't know if you know them. It's a rock band, right? They're amazing. If you're into like old school original rock. They were a band in the early 2000s from the UK that did like old school original rock, but they would have like long hair. They would always come out bare chested. So we went to they did a concert in Manchester, and the lead singer's name is Justin. I can't remember his last name, but he enters the arena on a flying pair of tits. So there is this pair of like, I don't know, 50-foot wide tits, and they come from the back of the arena, and he just starts like flying towards the stage. Right? It's amazing. So anyway, I got really excited at this. So I said to like the friends I was with, I was like, right, I'm going to start doing somersaults. So yeah, I just went straight in for like the somersault. But this was after I was shit faced. Like I should not have even been standing up. And yeah, I tried to do a back somersault, and that I went on my head on that occasion. That hurt. Um, so yeah, all great people do these things. You know, I get it.
You got to get it out of your system.
Yeah, you got to try it.
Mm.
Cool. So just like focusing on what's going on now and then what's going on in the future. So you've done your boat refit, which was the big part of your boat life because the boat needed a lot of work doing so you could take it further places. And I know that you just did like your first long passage really, because this was like was it 4 or 5 days?
It was almost 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it was upwind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Upwind, up current, up. We left from St. Thomas and we
Yeah.
went straight to Carriacou,
Grenada.
which is Grenada, the
Mhm.
little island just north of Grenada.
what was it is it the wrong time of year to do that type of passage, or did you like specifically want to get there and do like an upwind type of sail?
It's pretty much always upwind, I would
Mm.
say. But again, we were on this push to get the boat somewhere safe for hurricane season so we
Oh
could
right, yeah,
fly out
okay.
and see the family. So we knew we needed to be further south because we weren't really keen on going back to Luperon. You know, we had a lot of time there. So we're like, okay, we'll get to Grenada, cheap boatyard, good spot to be.
Yeah, I
But
think it's important to mention like 90% of the cruisers who we talk to, they go to Martinique. There's islands that go all the way down
Mhm.
and they kind of just do it in chunks.
yeah.
They don't go straight down and across.
Well, this year
yeah.
people are because you don't want to really sit. Well, I mean, if you have the time, you can sit quarantine at all these islands and then explore. But we really didn't have the time. So we weren't planning on stopping.
But I haven't seen, I mean, with anyone that we've been in contact with, nobody else has done the straight track. One
Mhm.
couple tried to do it and they ended up, so our autopilot went out 5 hours into the trip. That's what makes it pretty crazy, is we hand steered the whole thing.
Mhm.
And the same thing happened to this other couple, Make Way, and they did the smart move and they weren't really on a schedule. And they went, they went back north and east.
So they go to Guadeloupe.
To Guadeloupe.
Yeah.
And then they waited for good weather, and they, from Guadeloupe, you're further east, and then you're almost just going south,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go to the next island and anchor and wait for good weather. And so you can pick your weather windows and day, just wait for one day. It's harder to
Yeah.
pick a 6-day weather window.
Oh yeah.
You're probably going to get a day or two where it's pretty hairy.
Mhm.
But we felt ready, and they say the schedule is the most dangerous thing on a sailboat,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe that.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were in control, and Michael, it's really important. Michael's sister had the bachelorette party, and we made it for that. And
Nice.
that was, in the back of our head.
But we weren't so tied to the schedule. I mean, we were watching the weather for like 5 weeks, being like, okay, we're gonna pick a really good, calm window. We're gonna make it easy on ourselves. And it just never happened. It was just really consistent the whole time. 20, gusting 30, 1.5 meter, 2 meter seas. And that's what it was for the whole month and a half that we sat there and watched the weather, which isn't awful, but it's not ideal for going upwind. So we kind of decided, all right, it seems like it's going to be like this. We're not really waiting for anything to get better. So we just decided to go with just enough time to make it for the plane tickets. And we'd already had the conversation with my sister where it was like, we're not gonna
make it,
tie
is what I
ourselves
told
to
her.
this schedule. We're probably not gonna make it. We're gonna miss the flights. We'll be there for the wedding, which is a couple weeks later. But and she was totally fine with that. She doesn't want us to do anything dangerous out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we decided that the weather wasn't gonna get that much better, so we just went for it. And it was really challenging.
Yeah, I mean, we put a double reef in the main, and we just left a double reef, so we didn't have to go up and mess with the mainsail because we have to go up to the mast.
Yeah.
And that was plenty of sail the whole time, and we just used our furler. We have a furling head sail,
Yeah.
and so we really wanted to make sure we didn't overpower the boat, and that was it. Double reef main, and we just
played with the furler.
Sail small, and
so we might have been able to make better time, you know, if we were willing to adjust the sails a lot more, but it was, we're conserving energy at that point. We're like, you know what, we just need to rest when we can and hold the wheel when the other person needs rest, and just sit tight for this marathon, and we're gonna make it.
The autopilots are like so vital, you know, just to have like a 5-day passage is fine if you got an autopilot. Like we were talking about the type of autopilot as well, because like the wheel one is, they're nice in perfect conditions, but then they're not great in anything other than perfect conditions. But yeah, like hand steering for 5 days. Like I know that people have done this for hundreds of years, but I wouldn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they had bigger cruise. It's intense.
Yeah.
We both agree it was the hardest thing we've ever done.
Yeah.
And once you're in the middle of it, you know, then we got to the situation where it didn't make sense to go back. It just never made sense.
Yeah. And the line that we ended up taking wasn't close enough to the islands that we were going past to make any sense to go in and get rest, because we kind of thought, oh, you know, these islands are huge. When we get in the lee of the island, we'll have some break from the wind and the waves, and if we need to, we could go anchor for the night or something if we really need to get rest. But the line that we were on, we were so far away from the islands that we're going past, and we're not seeing these massive islands.
We never got 100 miles from an island.
Yeah.
When we looked at we were still 100 miles out, like the closest we were to Guadeloupe or any of those islands.
So there was a point, you know, around the 3rd, 4th day where we're tired, but the idea of beating dead into the waves for 100 miles sounds worse than kind of holding our 45-degree angle tack and just keep going.
Yeah, that's a great, you know, I mean, I know the plans are eventually to get to Greece, so you'll do like an Atlantic at some point, but that might be the hardest sail you'll ever do. It very well could be.
I hope you're right. We want to get a wind vane, and you know, it was just an electrical problem with our autopilot. We have a solid autopilot that it actually connects to a drum, and that's directly connected to our rudder. It's down below, the rudder shaft, and there's a chain, and it's a Raytheon. And it's a solid heavy duty autopilot. It handles, but and we just had fixed it. But it was something electrical. I was trying to figure it out while we were underway, because it was 5 hours into the trip. We still had Wi-Fi, and we could still see the Virgin Islands. And I was researching, and I decided, you know, to take our locker apart to go down there was a lot, and it was going to be a lot of work. So I knew if I started trying to do that, we probably just need to pull in and just bag the whole thing and try to fix it, and then look for a new window. And
which I was actually kind of in favor for. I was like, you know, we're here. We could just pull in. We could fix it. We could leave the next day.
But I gave you the option. And I told Michael, if you're not comfortable, then tell me now, and we'll go in.
You were confident enough.
I said, I feel confident we can do it. But I did tell her, and I 100% would stand behind that.
Yeah.
And if she wasn't comfortable, I said, you need to tell me now, and we'll bag it. And she said, she said, we can do it.
No, you did it. It shows you like how useful wind vanes are, or like hydro vanes, or you know, whichever one you want to get. You don't need any electronics. You just set the course with the piece of string, and like you're done.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you know, Herbie's set up there.
Yeah.
And that's what we want.
Totally.
Yeah,
we'd like to have that and our electrical. You know.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad
because
idea.
honestly, I don't know that our autopilot, if it was even working properly, would have handled the waves out there. We were steering so much just to keep the waves from jumping in and flooding the cockpit.
There were times.
There was quite a few times.
Yeah, but exactly. There were definitely times where I wouldn't have trusted the autopilot.
Yeah.
But we would have been able to get rest at some point. You know, there was hours where.
That's true.
Yeah.
One thing which I've noticed about like the hydro vanes or the wind vanes or like whatever brand it is, they are so quick to react to any movement from the boat. Um, and I like on my autopilot, for example, I will probably make like a good 10 degrees off course for like 10 seconds or so before it will get back to the point where it's corrected itself. Where like with the hydro vanes or the wind vanes, because they're so sensitive and the slightest movement just turns the rudder instantly. It's like you just never ever go off course. Even if you're in like really heavy conditions, they're expensive, but they're really worth it. I never saw any value in them. I was like, why would you get one if you got an autopilot? Like you just press a button, it's easier than playing with string.
Mm.
But yeah, like they're incredible, especially if you're doing passages or if you're doing like overnight sails and stuff like that. Yeah, so useful. And then you've got an extra rudder as well.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, good
Depending
point.
on which one you get. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
that's a huge thing, a huge goal of ours. I mean, before we ever leave for Greece, we'll have that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would definitely be necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have 2 autopilots for sure. We'll
Yeah.
have that in our autopilot.
Yeah.
Have you thought
Right.
about timelines for actually getting over to the Mediterranean?
Timelines? Ooh, that's
Yeah.
a dangerous word.
I would give us 3 years
Oh, that's quick.
to be in the States, because we want to leave from the northeast coast
Yeah.
and we want to do a final refit there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we want to haul the boat out and really, I mean, we're going to do a refit now in Grenada. We have some projects. We have a Dodger and some things we want to add. We're going to do the
Yeah.
tow rail.
Oh, nice.
Because we took on a lot of water. Poor Michael lost all our clothes. So like 3 years, I think, is realistic. Where we're in the States, we've done our second refit from now,
Mhm.
and then we might be ready to go.
That's really soon.
Yeah, but
I
because
thought
we're
you were going to give it
excited
like
now,
10
we're going to
years.
do some cruising. No, like now we can go downwind or with the wind.
Yeah.
No matter if we want to go back up to the Bahamas.
Yeah. That was our
Or-
whole goal with getting to Grenada too, is we're like, okay, from this point, we're not sailing upwind any longer.
Yeah.
It's just been way too much past 3 years.
Right.
It's-
It's like we
it's
can
so
get
much
back to
nicer.
Florida in like 2 weeks.
Probably
Yeah.
less.
And
Yeah,
it'll be a
like
nice, easy sail as well.
Yeah. So I mean, it took us a long time to get to Grenada
Mhm.
the way we went, but
Yeah, I mean that's pretty quick. I thought you were going to give it like 10 years or something.
I think that's realistic.
That might actually end up
It
being.
might end up 10 years.
That's probably the case.
When you
though.
say 3 years, you gotta figure.
You got to figure, okay,
More like 6
9.
or 7, 9,
I mean,
10.
when we hauled out in the boatyard, our goal was 2 weeks. We're gonna paint the bottom, and we splashed a year later.
Now, based on those timelines, you may never make it to Greece.
But we've learned to figure a lot of things snowballed from there. So
Well,
this
that
boat
was also
could end up
having-
going through multiple generations of lineage before it ends up back in
our
Greece.
kids will sail our boat to Greece.
Yeah, someone in the family will.
We're
Yeah.
not having kids on this boat.
Yeah. No, do you, with this, because I know the boat, it was built in Greece. Do you know anything about the history of how it actually ended up in the States, like through
No,
people who owned it?
Unfortunately, we know very little about our exact boat.
almost
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, it's another one of
Yeah.
those, it's like the no survey, the no sea trial, and knowing no history on the boat. Those are all big no-nos,
Red flags.
I would
yeah.
tell anyone buying a boat, yeah, if you can do all that, I would.
Do you know where it was
Everybody-
manufactured in Greece or which port it came from or anything like that?
Yeah, I think Olympic Yachts is in Athens, or was at that point in time. We've got the brochure, and
Oh, yeah.
there's a little write-up about the designer and
Dick Carter and
Yeah.
and it was an offshore racer,
mhm.
and it was one of the first production boats where they had multiple molds, I guess.
Oh, right. Okay. What year is it?
It's 74.
Yeah, I suppose that would probably be around that type of time. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where it's at as far as all production boats, but I do know it's the first one built in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, for Greece, in Greece for sure, because they're not known. There wasn't that many shipyards there that were like producing a heavy amount of boats for Europe. So yeah, I definitely think for Greece.
Yeah, somehow it made it across. We don't know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we're banking on the fact that, she did it herself and she could do it again.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
we
you can
looked
get it
into
back.
the history of the Carter 33, and it did win a race, in its class.
Mm.
And it was they had 50 knot winds during that race, and I guess it performed well, and that's high winds, So
Yeah.
to me, it's like, okay, it was racing offshore in 50 knot winds, so I feel like it's a pretty solid boat.
Yeah. Yeah, good choice then.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really thick fiberglass.
On accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
we
a
got
lot better though.
we
Like
didn't
the
know
older
anything.
boats are so much better. Do you know like the thickness of the hull and how they're made and stuff like that? Like
Yeah,
I just question if like some of the production boats that are made today will be around in 60 years.
Mm.
Don't know if they would. But yeah, like you can get some boats that are like made in like the 1960s and they're like as solid as the day when they were first made.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really cool.
classics.
Mhm.
Cool.
Pretty
Right.
cool.
We'll end it there, guys, because that is an hour and a half.
Wow,
Yeah, that flew by.
that's
So
good.
we'll be doing one in Greece as well.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
Yeah. So
I'm really looking
we're
forward
doing
to
a podcast when we're in Greece.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. All right,
Thank-
so I think this has been really great. I think we've learned lots about both your lives, and it's really interesting. Some great stories there. It's really entertaining, and yeah, I think it's great. Like the route that you've taken and the journey that you're on is it's brilliant. It's really inspirational.
Thank you.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Really appreciate you doing this podcast. And
Yeah. Be really keen to know a lot more about you. I mean,
Oh, that's all boring.
oh, come on.
That's
we're
all
gonna
boring.
learn oil and gas and gymnastics and
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we get to Greece, I think me and Joel might get along quite well with the get a few drinks in there.
do some
Sounds
backflips.
like it.
Yeah, start doing backflips. I will try and tightrope. If we get one set up, I will try.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah,
okay.
I'll fail.
I'll
try.
have to bring one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I left it on the boat. It's really
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's like the places where we're going to go cruising, and I've just been having a look at like some anchorages that we can stop at and stuff, and like the boat that we're spending time on. Like, yeah, it's going to be cool.